Now I'm going to talk about Succot. And you're probably wondering, what's the deal? And so basically, there's three major holidays, Shlosham Regalim, and that's when they did the big pilgrimages. And so Passover is about leaving, and then Shavuot is about receiving, and then Sukkot is about abundance. And so that's sort of the way that they go together. So first we'll talk about how they're related. And interestingly, I always talked about the two sukkahs. There's the sukkah of the wilderness, when the Israelites first received faith and Shabbat and manna, and it was the sustenance of God and their faith that enabled them to survive and endure during their time in the wilderness. And there's longer stories about finding the frost, which gave them sustenance and manna and things like that. So the sukkah of the wilderness is when we have fragility, and that's vulnerability. And that's really where we have faith in God that enables us to endure. And then the other sukkah is the sukkah of abundance, when you reach the promised land and it's the harvest festival, and the Israelites would be in the harvest and they'd be in the booths as they gather the fall harvest. And those were two of the sukkahs. Whenever you have a moment of celebration, you look back to your period of vulnerability that enabled you to overcome and persevere and make the sweetness of celebration even more sweet. And then this last week, I was studying with my rabbi, I found there was a third sukkah. Who knew? And it turns out the first sukkah was as the Israelites had literally leaving Egypt. They had not yet crossed the Sea of Reeds. That's when they had their first sukkah. And that's really the sukkah of marking that you're on the right track. It's like they realized that they were going to have the two sukkahs going forward, and it was sort of a amuse-bouche or an appetizer. It was a taste. So it wasn't like they just left the wilderness, left Egypt, and then all of a sudden had this sukkah and that. They actually had a third, which was, I think, interesting. So then I'm going to talk about the elements of Sukkot that is so important is the etrog. And in the etrog, this is the etrog from last year that we have. We keep it every year. And then this is actually the oldest etrog in the world, literally. And I've kept this for over 40 years. And I could go on and on about Sukkot, but I won't. This has literally been in my family for over 40 years. I'm going to bring it close so you can see it. And I've written extensively about this etrog, but that's another story. And I love tangents. So I can't go on and on about this, although I'd love to. So anyway, when I celebrated Sukkot, we all did, boy, was it incredible. Being in the fall harvest, we have our Sukkot, we do a party for 7 days outside, enjoy the abundance, and sense our impending fragility as the winter solstice approaches. So the way that we connect Sukkot and Passover, which biblically are connected and spiritually connected, we connect them culinarily. And this is what we call our etrog marmalade, where we take the etrog at the end of Sukkot and we make a marmalade out of this. And this is something that we enjoy with our charosset spread, which we introduced our 10th charosset yesterday. Okay, so that's a little bit about a connection.